say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but what if those intentions were more sinister from the beginning? I'm Nicky P, a resident pop culture expert, here with utopian history expert Danny McCarthy. We're gonna take a deeper look at the sci-fi movies that we love and see if maybe what we always thought were warnings were really blueprints. Join us as we pull at the crimson threads in our beloved cinema. Welcome to the road to hell. Welcome, Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest, to Road to Hell podcast, where we talk about, we review science fiction films and kind of examine, were they roadmaps or blueprints?
Either way, I think they're kind of blueprints.
Six of this, half dozen of the other.
It doesn't. We don't know.
It turns out.
It depends on the movie, maybe. So we review movies, we talk about the dystopian implications of them, and discuss whether or not society is moving in that direction or not.
And the moral of the story is that science fiction authors are always the people giving the bad guys ideas, I guess, is the most charitable way of saying it.
Yeah.
There's never a eugenicist far from a science fiction author.
It's true. It's true. And we can go back and talk about the history of that, but that's for another time. Because we've got a live audience, we wanted to make our review today to be somewhat relatable. So we didn't want to go with some esoteric thing nobody's ever seen before.
So we're not talking about Brandon this episode.
Right.
It's some Russian film that I'm the only person that knows, and probably only because it's about marketing.
Yeah. We're not doing anything esoteric or obscure. We're talking about two of the finest pieces of art ever made by man. Terminator 1 and 2.
By one of the most tied-in directors to what is going on in government.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think him and anyone can be as tied in as him and his wife are, apparently. We're getting another Avatar coming up, too, man. You pumped about that?
No.
If the first one wasn't enough preaching?
The first one wasn't that good.
I don't disagree, but it made bajillions of dollars.
It did. But we're not talking about that either.
Yeah. So, how many people in the audience have seen the Terminator movies? Let's start there. One of them? Which one?
Okay.
You know what was funny? I actually like the first one better.
Do you?
I remember the second one. The second one is a more glossy movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how shitty the first one looks.
Yeah, it was super low budget.
No,
which
absolutely.
Is part of the reason it's incredible.
What's funny is that they do all the interstitials of the world that they're in. They're all the same from 1984 to 1991, but you can definitely tell he came into money between the two movies.
Oh yes. Oh, yes. It definitely shows, but even the styles are just different between the two. The first movie is kind of like a horror movie, really. If you watch it...
Oh, it's a slasher film. He is just the monster that's coming to kill people. Now, it had a real interestingly convoluted story to it. But, right. it didn't get surprisingly into all of, the social stuff that you really start diving deep into about the world with war with the robots, so you get into in the sequel.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a general idea. I'm from the future, and robots and humanity are fighting.
Yeah. I'm from the future, and I'm here to help.
Come with me if you want to live.
Right. So, the first one being a horror film, it doesn't seem to really get that much into the world building.
No. And
it introduces one of the most perplexing issues in all of film, which is the whole, did John Connor's dad... How does the timeline even work in that movie, right? So that's a big question that we were supposed to talk about.
The big thing is even if you go back in time and you alter the timeline, there's very few options that are good for the person that does that. Because, you change the timeline, you go back to your time because you have to have some type of multiversal thing going on.
Right, right. And so the question is, in the first timeline, who was John Connor's dad? How does that work? Where's the initial... thing? And
John Connor's dad?
Yeah.
Well, John Connor, John Connor's dad is the guy.
Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese is his dad.
Yes.
But you're saying when Kyle Reese goes back?
Yeah, because Kyle Reese
isn't take himself out because he'd never be born because he...
Right. So it's the most circular thing in the world. It really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But we all buy it because the movies are just so cool. And they are cool. Right? I mean, does anyone disagree? Does anyone dislike the Terminator movies?
What if there was a pre-John Connor?
What is there a what?
What if there was a pre-John Connor in the other universe, right?
Right.
They brought them to a certain stage. Maybe that battle with the machines actually went better, or maybe it went worse. Once they sent Kyle Reese back out of necessity, they created this ultimate spin-off looping thing, and they're like, it worked, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So they don't know what the other universe was because it was destroyed.
Right. Yeah.
Because if we're gonna get into the whole time travel bit of it, I'm gonna end this all in saying the second one is predicated on the idea that they sent another Terminator and two more Terminators after. Even though in the original movie he says very specifically they destroyed the time machine immediately after Kyle went through, after the first Terminator went through.
Correct.
So there were no other Terminators going through the time thing.
The movies don't make any sense.
Yes. But that's not why we talk about them either.
So to get to the point, obviously the big thing about Terminator is the question about technology, right? And AI, and where is it going, and what does it mean for the human race? So if you recall in the second one, we get the kind of background for the future, which is that the Skynet, AI, essentially becomes self-aware on August 20th, 1997. And it says, all right, well, these human beings need to go, and so it provokes a war with Russia, mutually assured destruction takes place, and there we go. So that leads to a very interesting question about where is AI going to go? If AI can make value judgments, what kind of value judgments will it make?
Well, and what's funny about this is I'm a big Isaac Asimov fan, and that's why when Isaac Asimov was writing books about intelligence and robots back in the 40s and 50s, I don't know, the guy did it for a million years.
Yeah.
His big thing is he created the 3 laws of robotics. And law number 1 is that robots can't kill people. They are programmed to not be able to do that. It is the one function that they're not allowed to override. And there's a reason that was the first thing he decided. Because the big fear with technology is exactly what it is in Terminator. It's the fear that if we ever create something more intelligent than ourselves, it would all automatically want to get rid of us for being an inferior being.
Sure.
Which is really interesting, considering I can't think of many people that go around wanting to get rid of all of the animals around them. Is it the idea of subservience to machines that terrifies people, or where does that stem from? But we have a huge gap in years between both of these authors or these creators. But the one thing that stands with technology is we're scared the hell of it, and more importantly, scared that it's going to turn on us.
Right. Well, people are kind of afraid of a Terminator scenario.
Yeah.
Maybe not that dramatic, but we all have heard it. The machines are going to take over and kill us all. Everyone's. Go ahead.
Have you heard Google, one of their AI scientists? How they have an AI division because they're trying to develop some kind of
the one that thinks it's 8 years old now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the one that thinks it actually has emotions and is processing emotions on its own.
Yeah. So the question is about the Google AI affair. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I've heard it, and I don't know if it's what there is to it.
I was talking just earlier about this HBO show, Raised by Wolves, and a lot of this second season of that centers around, you have androids in the show, and the androids actually they have emotions. It's part of their programming. They learn to feel, and at the end of season 2, one of them decides to they have this veil that they created for one line of androids that actually makes it so they don't feel anymore, and they get into how amazing it is to not feel. But the idea is the intermingling of what's the difference between humans. They start playing around with the merging of biological and technological elements, like a technology that can procreate, and it's like a hybrid human robot kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea you can clearly see in this whole show is making robots and humans equal. In a world where when we're constantly terrified of robots. Now, do you think that like within that show, there's almost a sea change, where because technology is becoming so close and near and dear to all of us, that maybe we're losing that innate fear of being replaced and taken over by the machines?
You know, it really does seem to be one of these issues that divides people. I think for some people, yes, some people, I've talked to people who have said explicitly, when the chip gets here, sign me up. You know, like they want it, they're ready for it.
I'm going to imagine it would make porn way better.
Maybe.
Like, I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
Wow, I'm right in here. Like, you know, you can totally fake sensations on my skin,
sure,
like,
well,
through my brain.
And
That's
there are safetyist type arguments to be made for that because, well, we're going to eliminate effectively sexual disease through recreational sex because we'll just give you the porn plug, and there you go, you're all set. It could stimulate the proper centers of the brain, and you know, we move to the brain in the vat scenario.
It sounds so terrible. It reminds me of this movie, National Lampoon's Last Resort, where, like, there's, like, a whole subplot about VR sex in this 90s comedy movie.
Nice. I haven't seen that one. I just know Christmas Vacation.
The most important part of that movie is that Dred Zeppelin is in it.
Whoa.
Which is and there's a band in the 90s, they were a Led Zeppelin cover band that had a 300-pound Elvis impersonator.
Rock and roll. And
they were a reggae band.
Okay.
So reggae covers of Led Zeppelin with a 300-pound Elvis impersonator at the helm. It's the only important part of that movie.
Checks out. So with Terminator, we're dealing with so many different things, I feel like. It's a simple movie. It's so simple that it actually doesn't really make sense.
Yes.
It's completely inconsistent internally. But the themes it touches on, I think, are so important. The question of where technology is going and what are we to do about it. So the whole premise is, you know, the future is coming, but right now, the moment we're in, we still have a chance to change that future from actually taking place. What do we need to do? We need to essentially stop the big corporations that are doing it. I mean, that's the whole thing in the second one.
Well,
they find the corporation that's going to build the tech, and they blow it up.
Well, and more importantly, they find the guy who's the guy that creates it. And once again, let's not get into the holes of he had the chip from the future. And like,
how does it get started?
How does the chip get there? Like,
right.
Doesn't the chip stop being if you say, whatever. The idea really here is, that guy, so why this isn't what I ever meant to do. Like, he thought he was going to do something amazing for society. And don't get me across the Linda Hamilton, all you fucking men. All
men like you invented the atom bomb.
Yes.
So good.
Great feminism thing. We mentioned spend more time thinking about fucking, I don't know. But what's crazy is that it's all about the unintention of what man's going to do.
Right.
But very little happens unintentionally, it feels like, in technology these days. We get the technologies that they want us to have.
Okay.
They spend the money to make those technologies happen, when lots of amazing things that could be discovered get pushed by the wayside. So this idea of him just kind of, he found this thing and saw the good for humanity and what's going to happen from that was weird to me.
Yeah, this is one of those things that people, I think, who are kind of middle of the road this is the sort of acceptable moderate argument against technology spreading as it has is, you know, the technology is wonderful and all, but when it gets too big, there are going to be all these unintended consequences, like you're saying. You know, it's going to come alive and shoot us in the head, or it's going to ruin our experiences with reality, etc., etc. But they're always framing it as if that's unintended. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're suggesting is maybe that's the point explicitly. Like, that's what they want.
As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, like, man, you know what would be awesome if technology could do? If I could, like, have a chip in my brain that just shut off that thing that makes me want to eat Starburst jelly beans at all times. Like, could I get rid of that? I think I'd lose a bunch of weight maybe if I could just shut that synaptic, like, relay off?
Maybe. But do you then lose something? Do you lose a virtue of, like, self-discipline and that kind of thing?
There we go.
We become softer.
But as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking that, I'm also thinking, well, wait a minute. What if the real purpose of movies like this is to keep us afraid of technology and keep us reining it in and keep it from going the places that it could go?
Okay, right. So is this fear porn to discourage people from expanding technologically?
Yeah, from moving on, trying to advance the world and do good things. Don't throw too much into what the possibilities are, because if you go too far down that road, it's always going to be bad for us.
Right. That's a good question, and it's hard to answer because the technology that we're talking about is so outlandish in the movie. Like, we're killer robots that look like human beings. I think that the what's really going to happen is technology is going to manifest as this kind of decentralized network.
So you say that.
I do.
Have you seen what they're doing with real dolls in Japan right now?
No. I mean, I know what real dolls are.
Okay.
And I know what Japan is.
They're pretty damn realistic looking.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you make a couple advancements in the skeletal structure and add a little AI in there. We're not that far off what they're talking about.
Okay, fine. Killer robots are on the table. It could definitely happen.
Well, and you saw those dogs last week with the machine guns planted on them that the U.S. military is already using from Boston Dynamics.
I was just going to say, Boston Dynamics has been at it for years. Okay, fine, you're right. Back in Vietnam, dude. Back in Vietnam, where's the guy with the Metal Gear Solid t-shirt? Back in Vietnam, they were building bipedal tanks. Now, they didn't work very well, and the things would always fall over. It was probably hilarious. But they were trying to make walking battle tanks with guns on them and stuff. Drone technology goes back to World War I. Mm-hmm. The story behind that, by the way, is they put a radio inside of a bomb and then strapped the bomb to the top of a Model T and drove really fast across a bridge and launched it off the top like a kite. And they actually managed to steer it via radio for like 200 meters or something.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What's that? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you guys doing something?
You're good.
That looks good, man. Watermelon?
Would you like some?
No, thank you.
It looks like cereal.
I'll be
The
professional.
best kind of cereal.
Watermelon, just watermelon with milk in it.
Watermelon,
That doesn't sound
watermelon with whiskey. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, whiskey would be. I don't know. I would go with like a clear liquor. I think
Okay, clear liquor.
tequila.
Oh, that
Vodka
sounds
you
much
could
better.
do? Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay. If there are Terminators, and let's say technology takes over, technology's making these value judgments for us. How are we to live? Assuming it doesn't do away with us right away, because it recognizes, look, we need to keep these little monkeys around to fix our little gears and do whatever needs done. They'll use us as worker bees for the time being. Are they going to let us drink alcohol?
well, but that's the problem.
Aren't they going to regulate the shit out of us because they want us to prolong our productive capacity? No smoking, no drinking, no anything.
Have you ever watched Nine?
No.
Nine is
Maybe. Is that the Tim Burton thing?
No, he was a producer on it. It's an animated movie though.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Okay.
It's honestly it's a different a kid's version of the Terminator franchise.
Okay.
And in that, ultimately, what happens is the war machines eventually create their own way to produce themselves.
Right.
Because eventually, technology. I mean, we may use robots already to make all the crap that we make, so might as well just put the AI in charge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking at what happens once they start procreating, when machines can procreate, in essence.
Oh man. Okay. So
And
yeah, but that's still going to be down the road. So I think that there'd probably be an intermediary period where humans are. Maybe we're in that intermediary period right now. We still need to be the ones that fix the robots, right?
Okay.
But how long is that going to be the case? I don't know. How competent? All of this is predicated on the idea that this technology that they're working so hard to build is actually going to work. Because that's the other thing. I mean, my wife knows every day some newfangled technology is breaking. It's trash. The phones don't work. The computers don't work. The TVs don't work. The cars don't work. The refrigerators with Wi-Fi in them, they don't work. None of this shit works. So how are you going to send a metal man through space and time to kill a boy and then get chased by this other liquid metal dude and shape-shifting and... How's that going to work?
That's the thing that screwed with me the most
there are
about that movie.
There are too many things to go. It would arrive, and then it would just bump into the wall for 24 hours, because, it's not going to work.
I'm really waiting on the T-1000 technology, where the metal itself is sentient.
Yeah.
The metal is the computer.
Right, so it's like super microprocessor kind of things.
I mean, is the whole thing, what do you call it, nanobots? Yeah, nanobots.
Yeah.
Is and the temperature thing with it, don't get me started.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, the effects of like it was liquid nitrogen freezing it would not wear off that quickly. I don't care if they're next to a steel mill.
Look, dude. If you poke one more hole. No, you're totally right. Also, what's the world like where, I mean, I don't know. I would just imagine that you would want that sort of thing to be sturdier, but also where is it produced? Like, is the factory that it comes out of not have like extreme temperature conditions in it? I guess not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, you're talking
How do
about
you get the
you're
metal
talking
liquid in the
about a
first
metal that's, and somehow whatever it does, like when you put it in the steel, did it become diluted? Why was it the heat that killed it? Like it's something that clearly is already in liquid.
But steel is metal, and so couldn't it have gone into the molten metal and fused with the steel and become a gigantic steel
and then why
molten
didn't
lava
that happen?
robot?
Exactly.
Right.
That's
The movie would have been like 5 hours long.
so here, getting back to the more philosophical side of things.
Okay.
So we have James Cameron. One of these things that we know is that James Cameron is a huge environmental activist. Like the entire Avatar movie, that's all that movie is about.
Yes.
Now,
Well, it's half of what the movie's about. The other half is about colonial shit.
isn't that the same thing?
Well, fine. Yes.
It's people or animals we're pushing on it. It's one of
Right.
whatever. It's huge. Look, but that illustrates my point even better. He clearly believes that humanity is a virus in and of itself.
Okay.
So they're automatically projecting onto the robots what they feel. He feels that we need to be eradicated, and he is living out his desire to get rid of humanity through the robots. So it's back to the core premise of, is this someone who is trying to warn us of the future to come? Or is it someone celebrating and saying, hey, look, we're a virus, we need to go? Did you catch Idris Elba? He's on one of his tours a couple years ago talking to, who said on camera that, this is, I think, actually right in the beginning of COVID, and he said very specifically that COVID, mind you, this is back when they thought the whole world was going to die, is nature's response to humanity as a virus. It's it curing itself.
It's like an immune system response.
Exactly.
Right.
And you through Hollywood, it runs rampant. Like let's think Men in Black. What's Men in Black about? What does Tommy Lee Jones says? People are smart. Persons are smart, but people are panicky. He basically equates us to a virus on the planet. We're stupid and we should be eradicated.
Yeah.
The Happening. It's another good one. Listen, I was thinking about the other day. Like it's all over that.
Sure.
The Matrix. What's the hell's the Matrix? We're a virus.
Yeah. No, you're right. And with the Terminator, it's hard to say because it could be interpreted that human beings, being a virus, will ultimately get so caught up in their own ego and their own ability to create shit, and they'll build these robots that basically turn the world into a hellscape. So I don't know if he's so much looking at the machines as the cure to humanity. He might be looking at the machines as the ultimate expression of what's wrong with humanity. Because whenever they show the future, it's not an environmental paradise the machines have created. It's like, the whole world's a factory, and it sucks.
Well, and it's also, by the way, it's also the most arrogant thing a person can do, is look at as if we have that much control over the world.
Right.
Because ultimately what happens if long before it ever got to that level, we'd starve ourselves to death and there would not be a lot of people because there wouldn't be enough food supply.
Well, that's probably right, I think.
It all comes back to environmentalism with me, Danny. It's literally, it's the thread through everything, is that there is a sector of humanity that believes the world would be better if humanity never existed.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Is James Cameron one of those people? I don't know. Maybe, probably.
How much land does Ted Turner own? It was
All
absolutely connected to...
All of it except for this.
James Cameron.
They're
connected.
Okay. I believe it. I mean, we were talking once in the past on a previous episode.
Doesn't Cameron own a bunch of ranches down in Texas? Isn't that one of his things?
I don't know.
I'll have to re-up on that.
We were talking about a movie that was done by James Cameron's wife, and all of these military connections. I mean, everyone here knows how Hollywood is saturated with military money.
It's all
and
spooks.
advisors and all that stuff.
If you weren't aware.
Right. And like James Cameron's wife, whose name escapes me at the moment, was she's very tight with a lot of these military guys who were working in Hollywood. We talked more in detail about it. And so with James Cameron presenting this narrative of like the future of robotics, I'm sure there's a lot of creativity going on there, but also
not only the future of robotics, but the future of military technology, because it's the AI. AI is fine out there, folks, but it's when AI touches the button. When you give AI the button, that's the thing that it is. That's the real delineator. Because they put Skynet online and everything's okay until it gets connected to the nukes, and now all bets are off.
That is the ultimate problem, and removing whatever Cameron's desires or whatever from the equation, do we think, this is something we have no power over, virtually, assuming military AI gets to the point where it's logistically feasible, are the people in power going to actually give it control of the nukes?
I want you to think about this. How many politicians out there have big enough dicks? I don't care, whatever, I'll let somebody other than me have control.
Yeah, right.
Like, we're talking about people that by nature are control freaks. You think they're giving that button to anyone else, especially a machine?
Right.
The idea of that is ludicrous to me.
Yeah, and also I think that because we've had the Terminator and things like it, the public outcry for whatever influence that would actually have, people would be like, what? You're doing what? Like, we know how this goes. We've seen Terminator. We don't do that. You have to have, at the end of it, you have to have a person involved, and they do the thing where they turn the keys at the same time, Like in War Games, one of the greatest movies back.
It is absolutely one of the greatest movies.
We got to do a show on that.
War Games is on the table.
That movie kicks ass. Anyway, back to Terminator. We seem to be going all over the place.
I mean, but you know why? Because Terminator is, like, especially in science fiction, it's foundational. Everything has borrowed from it. It has affected everything that came after it.
And everybody's seen it.
And
it's really a part of the culture.
I mean, dude, there was a Terminator 2 ride at Universal Studios. I rode it when I was a kid. It was badass.
Yeah?
Like the T-1000. It's in 3D.
Did you get to be in a little, dirt bike and a semi-truck is
actually, I
chasing
think
you?
so. I think they do actually have that scene as part of what happens.
So good.
And, the T-1000, you're sitting there and, he starts doing the spike arms, throwing them at you.
Right.
And, a giant, swings them across the audience and you're just watching it in 3D oh, my God, I wish I had drugs. I'm kind of glad I'm out of drugs.
Right. Damn.
But it was literally a cultural phenomenon when that movie came out. Why? Here's another thing we want to talk about government. Why is it that James Cameron movies are always cultural phenomenons? How huge was Avatar?
Right.
Can you think of a James Cameron movie that isn't one of the biggest movies ever put out?
No.
Exactly. Wait, I got it. The first Terminator.
Oh.
That's the only one.
Oh, but that's so big. I mean, it was received so well. That's why the second one was able to be what it is.
Absolutely.
One of the greatest movies ever. So.
And I had to sit up here and shit on a guy who's created so many things that I enjoy watching. Yeah. But as we've done this podcast, one of the things that you keep coming across is how these stories that I love so much, these movies, books and things in my case, how they echo through society around them in ways that largely never results in more freedom for you and me.
Right. Well, and I mean, it may if we try and consider this stuff as detailed as we're attempting
I say that, like we said, all of the humanity has become so much better because of technology. Let's be honest, the cotton gin freed a lot of black people, and washing machines and vacuum cleaners freed a lot of women up to do a lot of other shit with their lives. So technology can always be the one thing, or it can be the other.
It's a fine line we walk. So Terminator, I think, is trying to, in a maybe ham-fisted way, get us to ask that question. Mm-hmm. At least, maybe that's not what Cameron wanted us to do, but that's what I'm going to do, goddammit.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, because you're not getting rid of technology. I mean, the world's not going Kaczynski. I don't think. Some people are, but I don't think that's going to work. Where do you draw the line? I mean, we could talk about cybernetics.
Immediately I'm thinking Grandma's Boy, where it's like, robot legs. I want to get robot legs. I'm going to be honest, robot legs would be super badass.
They would. I mean, all of the, ideally, you know,
but are you letting them jack into your brain to give you control of robot legs?
No. No. But also, again, the robot legs, they're not going to work.
Well, look, I didn't say you're getting, like, dude, you never buy anything the first model. No. You always wait till it's, like, been around a couple years and they got the kinks worked out, obviously.
I mean, I'm a proponent of return to analog. As much as you can do, I'm all for technology, but it's this digital cybernetic stuff where it's got a chip inside of it that's pretending to think. I'm like, yeah, you could just keep all that to yourself. Give me the thing that's got the part that touches the other part that pushes the thing. We're good. That's not going to take anything over. You know? It has no quote-unquote mind. And it'll be easier to fix, right? But now with the cars, the cars with the computers in them, it's not a car anymore. It's a computer with wheels. And you can choose to get into a computer with wheels. And now you don't really have the choice, and nobody knows how to fix it.
Well, what's funny, and this is always the dichotomy of all this, who are the people, and under what auspices does all that happen, Danny?
Progress.
Well, there's a very specific type of progress behind it.
Okay.
Environmentalism.
Environmentalism.
It is always environmental regulations being added to cars to fix this problem and that problem.
Sure.
That leads to... Why is it looking out for the Earth is going to lead to robots killing everything? It's like the people that you think would be the most wanting to slow progress as much as they can or reverse progress in society are the ones pushing the progress to try and fix this problem that may be real or imagined.
Right. Yeah, it's a catch-22 or a paradox, but I don't know how closely these people are really considering it.
Well, that's I mean now. Like, most people don't consider any part of environmentalism. Like, we're going to talk about fossil fuels later today.
Yes.
But a lot of that is based on people don't ask real questions. So, look out at the audience. When's the last time you thought about what oil does for the world? That's positive.
Yeah, positive.
But how often people think about it? No, you're like, man, it's out there. It's warming the earth and, like, animals are dying in the oceans. Right. Now, granted, I can't think of many things on this world that don't like being warm versus cold. Other than me, I would much prefer to be cold. But I am not the norm. So, given that, man, it seems odd that we should all be really, really afraid of a warmer Earth. CO2. Well, that's the thing that's going to kill us because the heat didn't.
Yeah.
It seems really, really suspect that they're telling me the thing that every plant on the planet eats, and then we eat plants, is somehow a bad thing. Like, literally, what do you do in a greenhouse, folks, when you want the plants to grow? You pump in CO2, because that's what they eat. So, yeah, it's a pretty wild shit there.
Yeah, the environmentalism thing is such a wacky rabbit hole to go down, because...
But it's a lot of not asking questions, and that's the thing. Like, people take you say, oh, yeah, we should all really try not to use oil. It's better that you accept that. You don't think about it, because they get you to stop asking questions. You just take the treatise as what it is. And it's almost like hey, we know it's better for you. Download it in your brain, parrot it. And even with me, like someone who's really tied into this stuff, like there's still a lot of things even like I just innately think, oh, yeah, of course we should use less oil. Like,
yeah.
But you know who really shouldn't think we shouldn't be using less oil? Africa, India, places, third world countries that like can barely scrape by life. Like their lives don't get better. They don't get what we have without an industrial revolution and a fuck ton of oil.
Remember, this was probably back in like 2009 or so, early Obama days, when he said something to the effect of like, those people over there don't get to have air conditioning. Does anyone remember this more specifically what I'm talking about?
Go look at the environmental people right now. One of the things they're going to parrot is that the environment is becoming more hostile to human beings. Now, mind you, that there are 90% less deaths due to environment in the past 30 years than there were before that. 90% reduction.
Wow.
Why? Because fossil fuels to make air conditioning.
Yeah. Right.
Or fuel oil. Because cold kills a lot more people than heat ever has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cold is terrible. I know this is getting slightly off Terminator, but
I see that's the thing.
The Ice Age stuff, like the coming cooling, which people talk about.
Well, I mean, which one?
I'm thinking of.
You're thinking about the grand solar minimum that we're about to go through,
yes,
and that we better hope that the amount we've warmed the Earth offsets that a little bit because it's going to get real rough.
Mm-hmm.
Like. Because, I mean, what is it, like the Dark Ages, what does that coincide with? That was, like, the last grand solar minimum?
Yeah, right, and then there comes the medieval warm period when all the cathedral builders start doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. God damn. So, were there killer robots back then, too?
Well, I'm not willing to put it past, like, say, the Aztecs and some of those older civilizations, because we don't got a lot of that stuff. Like, we really don't know what was going on. And their math was really good.
So there may have been killer robots.
There may have been, and maybe that's why we don't have more of those people around.
Yeah. Could be.
You want to open it up to see if anyone out there has like any thoughts on the matter?
Yes. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see what people want to talk about Terminator-wise. You said.
You guys were hitting on AI, and I was wondering if you've come across anyone talking about the potential of there being sort of an easy scapegoat using AI for things to fall apart. It's like, oh, we have something to blame, this say the nuclear code's getting out.
Oh, it's not my problem. It was this pesky AI that we put in charge.
But it seems like that's a very viable option for...
Okay,
Well,
so
why
the question
you say that?
was, could AI be used as a scapegoat for human incompetence?
Say
Or
this.
nefarious...
I would say more nefarious.
More nefarious, okay.
Isaac Asimov, like that's why if you read like old like 1950s science fiction, the way robots are basically treated like a slave class, and they like genuinely people blame robots for bad shit that they do all the time in the old science fiction literature.
Okay.
Like someone will kill someone and then blame it. Oh, the robot malfunctioned, even though they programmed the robot to do that.
Right.
Like things like that, and then the mystery is, oh, we got into the code and we saw someone tampered with it at the end, and that guy's gonna go to jail. Like that's part of a lot of those stories, and they all start out on some mining camp on some planet where someone's programming a robot to do a job that a person doesn't want to do.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for using AI as a scapegoat.
It's weird because in my head I was just thinking, wow, they're going to be the Mexicans of the future, and like, wow, they really throw a lot of shit on the Mexicans too, don't they? They're a pretty good scapegoat for what? Wow.
Scapegoat is the rule. Scapegoating is a rule of civilization. That's always something to bear in mind. There's always got to be somebody to absorb the psychic contempt that societies generate, because we're humans, we're bitter and resentful and we're sad.
Wait, are you?
Right, so we blame.
Are you sticking up for the Jews over here? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, fuck it.
Chill for the banks, folks.
Right. Yeah. There have been talks, as we've all heard, of cyber attacks and cybersecurity and all of these things. This is what we have to be afraid of, right? The Russians are going to compromise our technological infrastructure and cut off our oil supply or cut off our electricity. Blah, 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 blah. Now, so there are two scapegoats there, really. There's the Russians, but then there is also the means that they're supposedly using, the technology. They
got good hackers, man.
It detracts, I think, though, from what our powers that be are actually doing. They're seizing control of further and further oodles of power. We'll put it put it technically. So when a cyber attack occurs, we're not going to know ever who did it. You can never know if it was the Russians or the Chinese or Hunter Biden.
Well, they baked that into the cake. Oh, it's so easy to put a fingerprint on this stuff of who did it.
Right.
You can always go for the opposite of the scapegoat, right?
The opposite of the scapegoat.
Endless deniability.
Yeah. Jesus. Does anybody else want to contribute?
Well, thinking about what you were just talking about blaming the Russians with something like Stuxnet, the idea that you have a computer virus entering a nuclear software, and then what that has done to the sort of maybe Germany wanting to discontinue their nuclear power industry, you know, and that.
Oh, that's what you think that's about? No. Sorry, that's well, we're talking scapegoating. Yeah, that's a scapegoat because the environmental people can't have you having nuclear because you know what nuclear means? Nuclear means we get to continue affecting the world without the worries of power and energy. So, yeah, that's you can't have nuclear for that reason.
That's
because the end goal is human beings not affecting the world.
Well, it's some human beings affecting the world in a.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That was only covered loosely in my arena, so I don't know as much about the Stuxnet thing other than I don't know if they came up with a cemented scapegoat in that scenario. But
That's I can't say I've actually heard about that, but I mean to me it immediately the sniff test I have is oh wait you mean that thing that is on every government's agenda to get rid of nuclear power across the globe? Oh yeah, that totally seems weird that would fit right in. That didn't sound good.
Yeah. Something exploded.
Wasn't my tent, was it? They didn't hit my car or anything?
No, I think you're good. Yeah, I don't know very much about that. I that's interesting.
From what I remember, it was a computer virus that entered through the email stream, and it apparently entered like all of the nuclear facilities.
It entered through a computer screen?
It was Stuxnet was the Mossad. They actually used a physical USB.
Oh, did they?
But they were not attacking a nuclear power plant. It was a uranium enrichment facility.
Oh, right.
And they caused the enriching machines to basically over-rotate until they all like blew up. Or I don't know if they blew up, but they
Yeah,
just
something like it caused it to not to sound an alarm that they called for cooling or something like that.
It could. I forget exactly what the mechanism was, but it did something to make it so that the Iranians specifically was just the Iranians.
I was gonna say he said uranium and Mossad. I'm like, okay, so something to peg on Iran. Okay, I got you. That's a real quick angle to get to.
Trader to physically do it because none of those computers were networked as a security precaution. So they actually had to get a mole in and put a USB drive in.
Was it a lie that when they said they found that code in all of these other facilities?
It is spread a lot of different places.
But they may have done it, but they might have just not pulled the trigger on it. But I know it's for weapons making, not necessarily for nuclear power plants themselves. They were trying to inhibit their ability.
I mean, what I'm hearing is, man, we can hit a lot of agenda points real quick, all at once.
Yeah, very easily. Very easily with the technological scapegoat again.
Yeah.
It's really back to that issue. I feel I don't want to leave that subject. It seems really important, but maybe we should because it's a really deep thing to go down. I think everything is going to be scapegoated if it can be. You know, anything that can be scapegoated.
I mean, there's
will
a
be
fair
used as
amount of
scapegoat.
we're scapegoating the shit out of technology with our show.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
There's always that question. I'm definitely the more pro technology of the two of us. I'm kind of like I think that people are going to try and take charge and crap the world with technology.
Uh-huh.
But people tend to suck at that too.
Yes. Well, and I
They're
agree
not
with
good at that.
I agree.
Yeah.
But to whatever extent they do manage to do what they're doing, I think it's going to probably be pretty ugly. You know, and partially because it's not going to work, 100% according to plan.
Like,
So-
they're not going to kill everybody. We're going to end up with mutants instead.
Right.
Like, I'm going to have a third arm.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it make jerking off easier. But
It's not the worst. It could be worse.
depends where the arm is, I guess.
Right.
So
It's coming out the top of your head or something. That could
it would
an
be
issue.
difficult to reach that way.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So, where do we go from here, audience?
Where do we go from
On the
here?
subject of James Cameron, do you think that, given that his films tend to be...
How preachy is Avatar 2 going to be? That is a wonderful question.
Go run with it.
Oh, I don't need to roll. I already know it's going to be the preachiest film because he's just going to up the ante from the last one. I think. Do you think everything is going to be non-binary and trans on top of being?
Yeah, I think they're probably going to want to sneak in some... Not. I shouldn't say sneak. I think they're going to want to hit you over the head with the idea that these people are... we don't look at sex that way.
Yeah, I was going to say that message is going to be a 13-inch cock. Thwap, thwap.
Yep. Right across the old chops.
Literally. I was like,
It may be literally.
It may be literally. I
We
don't know.
Are they going to bring back the 3D thing?
Well, no, that was my thing. The first thing I saw, they're doing a new Avatar. I'm like, okay, so what kind of is this like the way to get the Neuralink introduced? Like you're gonna have to get a Neuralink to see Avatar, and it's gonna be a 4-dimensional film. Like,
Right.
is that the idea?
There's got to be something.
You're gonna go in there. It's gonna connect your brain. And you're literally gonna live 3 weeks in the film, but it's gonna be like in 2 hours in your head.
Mhm.
Like that's the first thing I thought of.
There's
Like, what
got to
was
be
the point?
some gimmick because
That movie existed for 3D. That
the
was
first
point.
one, that was what started everything being in 3D.
Yep.
Around 2010. And then, now it kind of went away. But it's about time for there to be another movie
Because they
gimmick.
charge too much for the glasses, man.
Yeah.
I would
charge
pay
too
an
much.
extra couple. I'd pay an extra couple bucks for a 3D movie if I got to keep the damn glasses.
Don't you get to keep the glasses? We used to keep the glasses.
Well, yeah, but
they used to charge you for a new
But they're
pair.
going to charge you for them regardless the next time you watch
Right.
the movie.
Yeah.
And I think the charge is stupid.
Okay,
I'll
you're
pay
right.
$2 more. I'm not paying $8 more for the glasses.
It does seem like it's an overall kind of advertisement for virtual reality, right?
Yeah.
And we're all moved, like the society as a whole is really pushing the metaverse thing, and
Well, and the concept of Avatar itself is
Well,
100%,
the meta-
VR.
So I actually,
I should say.
I actually went and listened to the original. What is it? Is it Neuromancer the other day?
Okay, right.
Which was, is that the one it was? I can't remember. I've been listening to so much sci-fi, but like literally the book that Metaverse comes from.
Oh, wow. When was it written?
Wow, was it 1991?
Okay.
Garth some. Anyways, the whole book is like the vision of. Well, okay, I've never read a book where the main character's name is hero protagonist.
Whoa.
it's almost as bad as unobtainium.
Yeah,
Unobtainium, oh my god.
so for all these people that can create these fantastic worlds,
Yeah.
they're all crap at naming shit.
Yeah.
It's clearly that's a moral of the story.
John Connor, JC,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, absolutely.
That author of Neuromancer is also responsible for coming up with, like,
The Matrix.
well, essentially.
Well, in the book, they refer to the Matrix. That's where they go when they're doing stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The term The Matrix comes from Neuromancer.
And there's literally an afterword by this dude like who knew the guy who wrote it, and the praise that he heaps on this guy for how he predicted the future and like how it's not predicting, it's like, oh, his stuff was so great that he literally defined what we all went to become. Like the whole cyberpunk world exists because this guy, and we all thought it was so cool that we literally tried to make that world.
Right.
Like, so this guy, he heaps on this guy's shoulders all of the like the projection of the future forward is this guy. Like, if he didn't happen, who knows what crazy, terrible world we'd be in. And you're kind of like, wow. That's a lot of praise for one guy in a book that most people have never read or heard of.
Right. God, but it's those esoteric things where you really do find out the origins for so many of these memes that find their way into the public mind.
And why I think it's so important that we have the conversations we're having, because it's these little stupid things in this book that, yeah, I'm the only guy who's heard it. They find their way into a James Cameron movie that becomes a blockbuster. It's not just some niche thing.
Right.
And then it genuinely affects the world. Like, The Matrix, it's a silly idea in Neuromancer. But how big did the movie The Matrix become culturally?
Oh my god, it's huge.
And that literally changed the world.
Well, and like the term red pill and all of these things that come from that movie, they're shaping elements of the culture. People are talking in the terms of a film.
Well, they're shaping things that have nothing to do with, they're nothing to even do with like the source matter of those, like the movies.
Incidentally, it is kind of ironic, isn't it, that people in the real world are using the vocabulary from a movie, a fictional movie, which is all about not living in fake reality, and people are talking as if they're in the movie by saying, take the red pill, and all that stuff. I think that's fun.
It is fun.
So, how's our time? When did we start?
We got a couple more minutes if we want them. I mean, ultimately it's up to you, Mr. Second Podcast, after this.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments, questions, heckles, swear words? Just
Where
yell
I
at
was
us.
going with that James Cameron question before was like you guys maybe being a little bit more movie buff or something.
Oh, but let's be like, I'm the movie buff.
Okay.
This guy, I have him here because he knows things.
Right.
He's read books.
Well, I mean, I wonder about the notion of certain people that reach heights of popularity if they're not positioned there because they have the messages and the wherewithal to put out the behind the wizard behind the curtain sort of message or something like that. So you'd take someone like Bill Gates or you'd take someone like James Cameron, for instance. And so, you know, to expand on that is like, what could you pull from something like Titanic? Or is that just to like build him up again to like make him seem like the great?
Okay, so here's a thought. Larry Fink of BlackRock.
Yes.
What is ESG?
Environmental. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
ESG is a way for people. We'll say Larry Fink's one of the richest people on the planet, or we'll say controls more money than any other person on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
BlackRock is invested in every major corporation in the world.
Okay.
You want to start a business with institutional money, you don't do it without BlackRock. Now, ESG is a society, like it is defining cultural and societal direction. And if you don't adhere to the ESG standards, they're picking winners and losers for how society is going to be defined in the future. Now, he's doing it, controls government the same way, using money. But ultimately, the end result is absolute people in power giving the money to the people that are going to help propagate their ideology. And that's literally what it is.
So, with James Cameron and his movies, how does that exactly play into that?
You want to go and make
like
a
money laundering?
you want to go and make a $300 million movie? You're going to have to convince someone to give you $300 million.
Right.
And some company that has that money is going to underwrite that.
Checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying you can follow how far back that road goes before someone is getting money is borrowing money or has is in a position to borrow money, and BlackRock is the ultimate bank of last resort for that.
Right.
And are they going to be able to get that loan? Because he said, oh, well, what do you want it for? Oh, I want to make this movie. Well, we'll give you the loan, but could you make sure that this is put in there as one of the executive producers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
what about the kickbacks that you get from government when you make a movie that say features the military? Things like that.
Well, even one that doesn't, so like Titanic. You know, why? What's that? And maybe it's innocuous, but I think that Cameron has sort of painted himself as this man who, if he's not creating a cultural myth like Terminator or Avatar, then he's shaping the perception of a myth that isn't a myth. You know, like something that actually happened. So the narrative of the Titanic story is now really seen through his lens. You know, it's romanticized and
that's interesting you went that way with that.
Okay.
Because I was going to say, who's one of the biggest names in the environmentalist movement right now?
Oh, yeah, Leo.
Why is he famous?
For that movie?
This giant blockbuster movie that James Cameron put out?
Right.
Is that like helping, 4D chess what the next generation of people to propagate your ideas is going to be? I don't know.
Maybe. There are no more icebergs left to sink ships anymore.
Thank you, global warming.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
But Martha's Vineyard is still there. So.
Right. So, and Obama's hanging out there, right?
Yeah. It's weird how many politicians are on the edges of the country.
On land that will soon be underwater any minute now.
Yeah. Just keep waiting for that.
That would be pretty cool. Should we wrap up?
Well, I was going to ask, I did have a quick question. How many people here think that technology is a net good or a net bad? Let's go net good first.
It's neither. Technology is pretty broad. I mean, you could say just clothes are technology.
All right,
okay,
let's
do this.
narrow it.
Do you think progress?
Ha.
What's the definition of progress?
I love the kickback. That's the best part about it.
So,
I would say that's ultimately the question, isn't it?
Right. So that's the thing about these questions is they are offered to us with Terminator. It's fundamentally a movie about technology and the question of technology. And so it just leaves you with this kind of suspicion of technology. But it's all very vague. Like you said, technology could be clothing. Technology is shoes. Technology is language.
My favorite technology is permaculture.
Yeah, right. So there you go.
It's a great technology.
It's a technology. So there's no doing away with technology. Technology is what human beings do. We have to, because we don't have claws and, all that stuff. We're weak. So we build claws and sharp teeth for ourselves.
You know my least favorite technology is?
Oh, no.
Government.
Oh, got him.
I think that the market demand to be ruled is a shitty demand.
Yeah.
A shitty market.
So these questions are so broad and like progress, it hardly gets defined. And so people are just kind of left with vague emotions.
Dude, Woodrow Wilson told me that progress is good no matter what.
Right. Progress towards more democracy. Right. So the question of what do you think about technology? Is it a net good or a net bad? We can narrow it down and say specifically cybernetic technology. That is to say technology that is designed to improve its own behavior by reflecting on its own actions. So that's fundamentally what cybernetics is, right? Go ahead.
That exists now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that a electronic technology can reflect?
Not reflect in a philosophical way. Cybernetics works on the principle of feedback, right? So imagine it's like shooting a basketball, okay? You shoot a basketball, you want to get it through the hoop. That's your aim, that's your goal. You have that in mind. So you shoot and you miss. And so then you assess, subconsciously really, it's a very primitive process. The ball bounces off the right side of the rim. So you get the ball, you go back, and then you readjust your aim, right? Shooting a gun, same way. You reorient yourself based on performance, and you compare your goal to your performance. So back in World War II, what became the Pentagon was basically working on doing that with anti-aircraft guns. At the time, they didn't succeed, but they were working on theoretically designing machinery that, through the use of, at that time, it was actually taping mechanisms, a machine could perform an action, a very simple action, and then determine whether or not it's in line with what it was programmed to do, and then correct itself accordingly. And so that's what the field of cybernetics is. Not anymore. No.
Here,
it began with weapons.
Let's talk injection molding as someone who used to work in a plastics factory. Those machines, like as they pump, like the little time that opens the solenoid that says how much plastic goes in the machine, it's constantly doing calculations. How much did the last one turn out? Like, was this time off? Like, we've got tolerances. What do we need to up the pressure here to make this tolerance be tighter so it's not farther out? We have too much in here. We have too much waste. Like, and the machines themselves, the computer processes, are watching to see what that data is at the end of every cycle. And over time, they learn how to keep within a certain threshold. They learn what things affect it, how they affect it. Like, the idea is machines that make themselves better at all time. Now,
the best example, the easiest example is a thermostat. You set it to 75 degrees, your house is 80 degrees. So the thermometer inside of the thing basically detects what the temperature is. It sees that it's not correct, so it turns the air on. When the thermometer reaches 75 degrees, which is where you've set it, it turns the thing off. When the temperature fluctuates, turns it back on. And it's as simple as that. So it can involve machines that are multi-parted. It can, a cybernetic system can be as large as an entire building. It could be as large as a nation. And nowadays, as things become digitized and decentralized
Global.
Technologically, sure, the cybernetics is becoming more and more ubiquitous. But as far back as the thermostat, which is fairly
how
old.
about this for a fun one?
Yeah.
Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook has parameters that it's supposed to do, and it will decide which advertisements and things it does for you and shows you to elicit specific outcomes. And it learns, like, that's why the advertising algorithm was so good for so long, because, man, it knew who to feed those ads to.
Right. Yes, right. So it's a machine, it's a network of machines at that point. Mm-hmm. Looking and studying what the world is doing and comparing it to the goal which was put into it, and there's adjusting accordingly.
The big thing is it's capable of being reactive.
Cybernetics
reactive.
It's the ultimate form of pragmatism. Set your goal and get it. by whatever means necessary, because these are automated networks. They don't have the power of philosophical reasoning or reflection, right? The thermostat doesn't think like, does it really need to be 75 degrees in here, though? It just does it, because that's what it was told to do.
My goal is to protect humanity
Right.
from destroying the world.
Exactly, right. My
Because if
goal
we
was-
destroy the world, it destroys itself. Well, if we get to the humanity destroying itself first, maybe we can keep the world.
That seems to, well, at least if we're going with Terminator Land, that's the narrative there. So the question, are cybernetic technologies fundamentally bad? We can keep our clothes and we can keep automobiles, but is something that is intrinsically designed to perform action, how can I put
Where
this?
do we draw the line? Do we keep thermostats and get rid of Facebook?
Right.
Or do we keep Facebook but not go to Skynet?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Where do you draw the line? It's not simple, but I think it's a question worth considering. If a machine is something, or a cybernetic machine is something that can reflect on action and then change its action, is that simply technology, or is that something more? Is it in a different qualitative category?
Isn't that just basically the most fundamental definition of life, too?
Yep.
Wouldn't cybernetics just be life on a faster scale?
So, yeah, so the Norbert Wiener is the guy you want to go to for cybernetics. He coined the term. And his conception of it was the cybernetic process is so fundamental that ants are doing it, you're doing it, you don't realize you're doing it. It's so simple, even machines can do it. But yes, you're absolutely correct. It's the base form of life, it's the base form of learning, it's going on constantly.
So is it maybe just inevitable in a certain way, and the only thing you can do is try to steer it?
Could be. Could be.
It could be.
Steer it is an ironic
Yeah,
thing
steer
too,
is such a wonderful phrase there.
well, because cybernetics means steersman.
And that's the kind of thing about Asimov's laws, is he's like, well, we got to program them so they have these three
Fail
laws.
safes is what they are.
Yeah, but eventually there's going to be a random mutation. You can't hold back the natural flow. Life will find a way, right? It'll eventually, something will happen and it'll break out of that, and it'll just go right back to the same pattern life always been. So, what do you do about that? You're gonna have a random mutation.
Don't get that evil doll from the Korean factory.
Plug it into the internet, right?
I mean, that's the moral of the most recent. What is it?
Child's Play.
Yeah, Child's Play.
Oh, do they have AI Chucky now?
Yeah, no, that's actually the whole premise behind it. Is that a bad chip is created in a factory where all the people are overworked, obviously, in this Korean factory.
Toy Soldiers ripoff.
This one bad chip infects this doll, and so when he comes out, he learns how to love from an abusive dad.
Aw.
And he learns that, violence is love.
Right.
And then he gets connected to AI and starts killing everybody. Because violence is love.
Nice.
And when you connect it to the internet, that becomes worse.
Well, that checks out.
So, I had a lot of fun talking about the movies. Hopefully you guys enjoyed things. We do this fairly regularly on the Road to Hell Film Review podcast. If you want to look us up online. We've talked about a bunch of interesting movies and maybe some more esoteric stuff.
Yeah.
But give us your email on our website. We've got a bunch of bonus episodes on the movie The Circle.
Yes. Going very deep into the symbology there.
Of one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
It sucks.
So it's
2017?
2017. It is the most awful movie that has clearly predicted society way too accurately.
Yeah.
Is it a sci-fi or a horror? It sounds like
I guess it's kind of trying to be a sci-fi movie. But it's set in the super near future kind of thing, so.
Yeah, it's basically about Facebook.
Yeah, it's about Facebook and AI being more ubiquitous than it is right now.
It's about Facebook becoming your government. That's the end story.
Right. In a way, it is the more sophisticated version of Terminator.
What's it called again?
The Circle.
The Circle.
It's a book by this guy Dave Eggers too. The book's way better, but that goes without saying. It has literally the most awful character that you're ever going to see in a book. Hermione Granger is just so very awful.
Yeah.
And I guess the character was created to be hated.
Yeah.
It's kind of, they try and almost redeem her in the movie.
Well, and everybody's favorite American, Tom Hanks, is also in it.
Yeah, don't get me started on Tom Hanks.
We'll save it for the bonfire.
So wasn't that the first celebrity to get COVID? I'm not saying nothing.
Right.
It's weird. So, Danny, you're gonna be taking over here when I set this down.
Yeah, just about. I'm gonna run and put food in my face
Okay.
frantically. And
Well,
then,
thanks for hanging out with us, folks.
yeah, thank you guys for joining us and listening.